Good evening. It's been a while since I've done a evening video. I have some of those in there. I have some 2 a.m. ones, some 1 a.m. ones, coming out of the gym, struggling with some shit. But I wanted to do this one. I was just talking to a friend, and I felt the urge to do this. I was talking about pain and like seasons of our lives, and I thought about, like, not just necessarily this season of my life, which I feel is a fruitful season. I feel it's a season of all of my efforts, all of my grind has given me some fruit, and I'm trying my best to not turn that fruit into something that would last longer than God intended it to, because we can do that, right? We can go into this grind, and we can and get some fruit. It'll bear from it, and we'll pick the fruit, and the fruit will be so amazing, and then all of a sudden we're down to the pit, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, fuck, that's just how it works. And sometimes, we get things like that will stay with us for our life. Memories, people, experiences that won't ever leave. Like, my experiences of what I went through in my past will always be there. And, unless I get sick and I don't remember anything, and it won't matter then, really. But while I'm not that, those things will remain. I've had people come into my life, and I've gone through it, even in these videos, and they're still in my life, but in a different way. Friends from far away, friends from close by, that it had evolved. And so I want to talk about pain, struggle. If you're like me and you're in recovery, there's a lot of that. But what I've come to believe is that if part of your story, and now you're working towards the next season of your life, understand that is the fuel. Sometimes that fuel will drive you when it's long gone. You'll be sitting there feeling complacent, and you'll think that whatever's going on right now is the worst shit ever, and then you'll tap into that resource of when that felt way worse than this, and it will remind you of how hard you worked to get to this new struggle. And for me, that fuel will sometimes take me over that little hump that I'm stuck at. And that's how we overcome the pain. The pain is necessary. And if you don't want it, you'll never grow. I was never going to go through this journey of my life without pain, without struggle, without worry, without anxiety and depression. But how we go through it will define how we grow through it. And sometimes we'll just remain in the pain, and we'll become paralyzed in it. And that paralyzation is also part of the growth. As long as it doesn't take you backwards. And even then, if you go backwards and you fight through that and you move forward, that was part of that process too. for me, it requires trusting that God, my higher power, is at work. It requires that. Because when I trust in that enough, where I was like 2 weeks ago, like really struggling, I've settled because of how much I've leaned on God, how much I've written, how much I've shared, how much gym time I've put in, how much I've like still did it at work, that now when I'm sitting in this place mentally that is unknown, like I don't know, but I know that like, but I trust that whatever it is, it will be right, even if it's not the way I want it to be. Even if we get the worst, even if we get terrible news, or news, the information that we don't want, it's the right news. It just feels so wrong. This whole experience I'm experiencing right now has given me some chain links to my armor. And I didn't realize at the time because it was forging. And when it's forging and it's, you know, like with any metal that forges, it has to be put under extreme pressure, heat, and then cold water, and it's beaten, and it's twisted, and it's turned, and then it's formed, and then it's cooled off, and then it sits, and then it's added to the armor. And that's how each chain link gets put on that, to my knowledge. I mean, I'm not a blacksmith, but I would assume that's how it's done. Maybe by machine now, but I like to reference this as the old times of how they built armor. And that's what we have to do with each situation and season of life. Some seasons are sections of that chainmail that we're building, and other seasons are just one chain link. And for me, the goal is to never put it around my heart. You know, I've heard people say you got to guard your heart. Guard your heart. I don't disagree with that. Like, you know, have the wisdom to know the difference. You know, like I don't disagree with that. But there's a difference between guarding your heart and being jaded so your heart is protected. And that's a big difference. Like, will I ever, no matter what happens, will I ever say, I'm done, I'm out, I'm just going to live the rest of my life in complete freedom from it all? I don't want to experience that anymore. You know, the other day I was like, man, I was talking to another friend and I was like, man, I don't like pain, especially this kind of pain, but I know it's necessary. And at the time I didn't want to feel it. But when I asked myself if I could go back and erase it and not feel this anymore, hell no. Hell no. I'd do it all over again, feeling like that all over again, because it's worthy. It's that whole thing about like why we are living, you know, what life is all about. It's about feeling those emotions, experiencing them, not having to look back and say, man, I wonder what it would have been like if I didn't, like if I would have tried that. Instead of like going through a divorce and saying, I'll never talk to anybody ever again. Because I know that like if I could come out of each experience like this, people, you know, like relationships or whatever, if I can come out with this type of attitude, this positive attitude behind it, the next time it won't be as bad. And I'll handle it much better. And I'll be grateful. Like I was able to be grateful in the pain. It took me a long time to get to that point. It took me a long time to get to a point of where while I'm in a certain pain, and usually it's self-induced mental stuff that isn't quite true. Like take for instance when you are into somebody and they don't text back, you know, or they take really long delays, and if you're like me, you want that information right now, right? Well, that's happened to me. I mean, it's happened to me where I didn't talk to him ever again. And then it's happened to me where it's long periods of time. And what I've come to believe is that that's God at work. You know, it's teaching me how to cope, or it's teaching them, you know, that maybe I'm not the right person, or it's just an experience, like it, you know, like, and the whole thing is like, I don't know, but in the process of, I get to experience. And like a year ago, I wasn't like this. I was like a zombie, man. Not wanting to feel, almost wanting to drink. And then, you know, when I went through something again, like then I really wanted to, but I never did. There's nothing I can think of that would ever, let me rephrase this before I finish that sentence. There's nothing that I can think of that could replace better than going through it than this. There's no drug, there's no drink. Yeah, I tried to get through my mom's death by drinking it. I tried to get through my divorce by drinking through that too. And now that I've experienced getting through stuff like death and, you know, loss and, you know, breakup, whatever, this way, I can say that this way hasn't taken as long as those ways did. Those ways took me years, a decade, where this way has taken me months, and in some cases days. So in my experience of pain, working through it, not getting loaded to cope with it, I've got more success of getting through it clean and sober and writing about it, doing all the other positive things and having a gratitude while in it than I did with any bottle or any substance, pot, anything. When I look back, I realized that like I never really was working through it by doing that. I was just changing that feeling to another one. So when that feeling went away, this was left with me, and now I'm too weak to even deal with it, that I would just put it under the rug or in a closet, and I would be so afraid of that closet. And anytime I thought of the closet, I'd get loaded over the closet. Not even the thing. Until while I was getting loaded, the thing made me want to do more. So pain is important. I'm not saying that I look for it. I don't sit out like, okay, what's the next painful thing I can do to myself? But I keep trying things that are going to cause pain, and I keep getting through them positively, and it's necessary, and I'm like in a good headspace right now because of it. And that doesn't mean that like I'm not going to worry or trip or any of that stuff. All it means is that I can cope through anything the right way. And even that right way might not look perfect. It might not be pretty either. But I come out stronger every time. You know, you're never too old to do it. Like I hear people say, I'm too old for that, you know, it's too old for drugs. So pain is important. It's something that when, like, I hope that I get to a place in my future, in whatever season of life, where when it happens, I'm like, okay, yeah, you again. And it's not as, you know, fucked up. It's definitely a good learning tool. And the only way I really cope with pain, like now that I've done all these things, is by really trusting in a power greater than myself. And I don't know how I'm going to feel, you know, 6 months from now or a year from now, but I like to believe that I'm going to feel better about it, because I already feel okay with it. You know, I'm not going to say great about it. I don't like it, but I do understand it a little better, and I'm able to cope through it a little better. And I lose sleep and everything, but I'm able to find a way to sleep through it too, you know, and not just use sleep as the coping mechanism to get through it. And so, yay pain. That's it.